Hey everybody, welcome back to another career interest interview where we're in a series where we interview anybody who is in a career that you may or may not be interested in. My name is Jojo Dalwadi, and just to refresh all of your memories, 2 weeks ago we interviewed commercial airline pilot Frank Ianni. Last week we interviewed Dr. Yuli Kim, and this week we are here with TJ Smink, Mr. TJ Smink. So, Mr. Smink, can you first start off with telling us a little bit about your job title and what you do?
Yeah. I'm a senior account executive for premium seating with the Philadelphia Union soccer team. So essentially, what I do is I work with companies in the area and helping them entertain their top prospects, clients, and employees down at Subaru Park with the number one fan experience in Philadelphia.
Now, is that something you've always been interested in, or is that like something you kind of eased into throughout your high school experience and college experience?
So funny enough, I'm not gonna lie, I never thought that I would be in soccer. So I grew up in the North Penn area. I'm from Talmenson originally.
Mhm.
So I actually tried out for Talmenson Youth Association's travel soccer team for 5 years when I was a kid, and I got cut every single year. So I did not like soccer from a very early age on because of that. But opportunities presented itself. I knew I wanted to work in sports, and this was the best opportunity, as well as the most challenging opportunity that I could find because I like challenging myself. So it was just a good fit for me.
Did you go? I know we have a North Monco Technical Career Center that
Mhm.
kind of does like sports management, or I think it's turf management. Did you go through that program, or did you stay within the high school and just kind of went through the courses there?
So I believe when I was in high school, I don't believe that North Monco actually had the sports management program, but I know that there was a sports marketing class taught by Mr. Bovell at the high school. I'm not sure if
Yeah,
he's still
I
there or
took
not.
that.
I think he is,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean that. When I was in high school, I honestly didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that I wanted to do something with sports. So I took everything from sports journalism to sports marketing to athletic training. And I actually went into college with the mindset that I wanted to be an athletic trainer. After doing biology for one semester in college, I found out that biology was not for me. And in order to do athletic training, I mean, it takes a lot of biology classes, a lot of learning everything about the human body and such. But my roommates at the time, they were doing business courses, and they were pretty much the first ones to tell me, like, look, dude, like if you want to do something with sports, like there's a lot of other things that you can do. So I decided to switch my major from exercise science right off the bat to marketing for my second semester freshman year in college, and from there, went through the entire College of Business at Shippensburg University, and I ended up landing here in an internship back in 2016. So yeah, so I went after I got the internship, a lot of long hours to get to where I am today.
Can you talk us through what that internship was like, what you experienced, what you learned, and what official title you had?
Yeah, so the internship that I ended up getting was event operations for the union. So essentially, what event operations was back then, I'm not sure if it still is today or not, but it was essentially like grassroots marketing. So because I was a college football player, I was the one that was pretty much in charge of moving all of the inflatables from the trucks that we would take to different events all throughout the community to spread the word of the union. So we would go to travel soccer games, player appearances, tournaments all throughout the area and such, and we would day camps and such. But we would just be spreading the word of the union to the younger generation, who in turn would tell their parents that they'd want to go out to a game, just for a little bit more lead generation essentially.
Mhm.
But I found out in doing that I wasn't really meeting anybody in the front office because I was barely in the front office since I was always out in the field. So I let it be known amongst the other interns that, I wanted to get more face time with people in the front office. And one of the interns, it was an unpaid internship, and the ticketing intern actually told me that he needed to take a job in the mornings as a camp counselor from like 8 o'clock in the morning to noon. So he
Mhm.
asked me if I would take over as the ticketing intern from 8 o'clock in the morning to noon, and then go to then become the grassroots marketing intern from like noon to like 4, 5, 6, wherever the event was. And then I would drive all the way back to Hatfield, where I was currently living at, to do part time at Dick's Sporting Goods in the Montgomery Mall. So,
That's awesome. So you essentially had two internships. One was official, but you were kind of playing the role of two different internship positions, and then you would drive back all the way back to Hatfield, where I live, and then you work another job at Dick's Sporting Goods.
yep.
Now, would you say like that? I think that speaks volumes to the fact that how much you kind of wanted to be in sports. I know we're speaking to seventh graders and 12th graders and also all the grades in between. The fact that there's a lot of kids that go to the high school that have the initial thought of sports, of a career in sports as only being a professional athlete. But I don't think there are many kids that realize that there are other ways to still be involved in professional sports without being the one dribbling the ball or kicking the ball on a soccer field. Can you talk about can you talk to like those kids who may or may not be at the ability to play at the professional level, to if their interest is high enough to keep at it? Because like yourself, you are in a field where you are in a professional athletic scenery. So can you talk to those kids a little bit?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, and I completely get where they're coming from. Like, I thought that I was going to be the next Jason Kelsey, the next, growing up, I wanted to, baseball was my favorite sport, but I ended up playing college football. But I never looked into the business side of sports as opposed to, just playing. So, I always wanted to be the big power hitter, four hitter for a baseball team someday, or, on the offensive line for the Eagles, essentially. Those dreams got cut short, but I didn't realize that there was a business side until I got into college. But I mean, there are so many jobs behind the scenes that people don't see, and I'm sure a lot of people in today's day and age, like they interact with social media and stuff like that for the different sports teams. Those aren't the athletes that are running those accounts. Those are actual people like in the marketing departments for each team, and those marketing departments can range from a couple of people all the way up to, I know, teams that have like 15, 16 people, just for um, you know innovative ideas to help advance the team in the public's eyes, essentially. So I mean, there's marketing departments. I am on the ticket sales side of things, where our department was as big as, I want to say, roughly around like 30 to 40 people at one point.
Mm,
But that's, I mean, that those are just two departments. We've got partnerships, we've got IT, sports analytics, and that's only on the business side. That's not even including the technical side, which is more like the
right.
coaches, the scouts, the athletic trainers, and such. So there is an entire team behind everything that you do see on TV that most people don't actually get the chance to really think about until they do get older, in a sense. So I mean, there is a lot of there are a lot of positions that people can aim for to get into sports.
And you talked a little bit about your education slash the training you needed to be in the position where you are today. Would you
Mhm.
say that there is a set path to becoming what you are, or are there many, or do you have colleagues or other coworkers who come from completely different branches of college experience and also an internship experience that you work with?
Yeah, I mean, since I'm in sales, I know that there is a lot of different backgrounds in sales. Like for me, I came from a marketing background with a marketing degree from Shippensburg University. I know someone who was on our sales staff that had a degree in, I want to say it was history. It might have been Spanish
Mm,
history, but Spanish history from Princeton, and she wanted to be on the sales staff as well. So the background doesn't really matter as much as more it does how you hold yourself, as well as the previous experiences that you do have. So for me, I always recommend people who are trying to get into sports, like modify resumes and such for the certain position that you're going for. So if you're looking to get into a sales role, you want to, show if you have any sales experience. But if you don't, you want to highlight on key attributes that you do have, characteristics that you want to show, not only in interviews, but also on paper. So, for sales, you always want to be competitive. So you mention that you were an athlete or something like that. Mention that, you were trying to become like all district or something like that, because it shows that you were competitive. You wanted to be number one in that aspect. We always look for people who are coachable. We want people to be able to take criticism and stuff with a grain of salt this way, because, we're making them better in a sense. So, but at the same time, like those attributes are completely different than someone who would say be going for like a marketing role, where with that, being competitive isn't, as necessary to have as being part of a team, collaborating on group projects, coming up with innovative different ways that teachers and such didn't actually think about in a way to do like a project. Like you want to make sure that, your imagination kind of stands above and beyond on a resume, as well as in answers that you give in interviews as well.
And
I hope
talking
that
about
answered the question.
competitive, yeah, no, that did. It cleared a lot up for me as well. Talking about competitiveness, I think your pathway kind of speaks volumes to that topic specifically, because you went from, correct me if I'm wrong, 2 unpaid internships to a secured position in ticketing. What was that like when you first got told you were moving up the ladder in the union? What was that first conversation like?
Yeah. So after I became the ticket intern with the union in the morning, I made sure that, while I was in the office, I made sure to, essentially network myself with the other people in the office, so they knew who I was, knew what I was doing. So I helped at the time the premium team kind of put together packages of what other team, or put together like a pamphlet of what other teams were doing with their benefits and such. This way I could aid them in their meetings for what they wanted to do for each section. But, while doing that, I made sure that I was well connected enough that there was a ticket sales competition for the interns, where they would essentially sell tickets to their friends, their family, as many people as they possibly could, essentially. But what I did is I made sure to reach out to the ones that were already doing it professionally and ask them, how would you go about this? What stance would you take in talking to X person and such like that? At the time, I ended up coming in second place in the competition, and I'm still bitter about that, because the person who did get first place, her uncle, I believe, like was a lawyer or part of like one of a big law firm. I'm not entirely sure exactly what it was, but
I see.
she ended up coming in second place all time for ticket sales in the ticket sales competition. I think she had like seven total buyers, whereas yes, I came in second place in the competition, but I came in third place all time in the ticket sales competition. But with that too, it was to 49 different people, where they said that was the biggest number that they had seen in separate sales in the time that they were doing the ticket sales competition. So by doing so well through that, they were just starting up their inside sales program at the time that I was an intern. They asked me if I wanted to take part in the first ever inside sales boot camp, where they would pretty much run through the script that they have in terms of like talking on the phones, trying to get people to feel comfortable with you in a sense, to eventually sell either season tickets or group tickets. And I went through that, and they told me that I sounded just as good as the people that they had just hired. So from that, they offered me a job to then be in the second ever inside sales class with them, and that was back in January of 2017 when I started. So it was the feeling was awesome, especially since I was like, okay, awesome. It was right before my last semester in college. I was like, cool, I've got a job lined up. It's in an industry that I want to be a part of. and I had other job offers and such, like for like financial advising and stuff like that, and those jobs paid a lot more than what I was going to be making, with my first year in sports. But the way that I've always looked at it is I would much rather do something I love, because then it doesn't feel like I'm working, as opposed to do something for the money where I would almost dread going to work every day. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing with financial advisors or anything. It's just not for me.
Right. Yeah, no, that's been a common theme when we've kind of interviewed everybody. The main moral is one, if you have an opportunity, seize it, right? And that's what you did with your internship. And then also make sure your job doesn't feel like a job, or else you're doing something wrong. And I think
Exactly.
that's a main way. So when you first started in January of 2017, and you've been doing that since to the present date, correct? What would you say
Yes.
is like a normal Tuesday?
So my role has changed over the years. So in inside sales, essentially, what it is you are expected to make a ton of calls, a ton of emails, a ton of reach outs to all of these people, with almost the expectation that they're not going to pick up. So when I started, I was calling on people that went to Copa America in 2015, 14, 16. I don't remember, but the fact of the matter is that like they had never been to a Union game. They were the coldest of cold leads, but essentially like we were getting those leads, because we were just starting out. They wanted to see how we could handle objections, how we could um, try and bring people out to the stadium and essentially sell them a package of some sorts. And yes, we were able to sell a couple of tickets and such here and there, but it was more to see if we would continue with the hustle and not get discouraged by people telling us no, telling us no, telling us no, telling us no, because the more no's that you get eventually leads to the next yes. So, I did that for an entire year, and then I moved up to our season ticket team in January of 2018. Making sure my timeline's right. Yeah, January 2018. So then from there, by moving up to the next team, I got more of the warmer leads. So people who, had come out to games, and seeing how their experiences was, and seeing if they would want to come out to even more games. But people who had experienced the union before, people who have made it to games within the last like 2-3 years. And then from there, I found that I like making relationships with businesses and such. So I put most of my focus on that as a season ticket rep, and going on meetings with businesses, creating networking opportunities for myself, and just expanding my professional network to the point where that professional network is now friends of mine. So from there, I then moved up to the premium team, where the premium team deals with the higher end seats and such. But at the same time, we can still work with mom and dad who are bringing their kids out to games multiple times throughout the course of the year.
Is there anything about your job that kind of surprised you that you didn't really think about when you were kind of hunting for that position?
Yeah, so when I first started out in inside sales, I didn't realize that there could be a friendship aspect to everything that I do, because a lot of what I do now is creating the relationships, and seeing if what we offer is a good fit for the companies that I do talk to. If it's not, hey, understand, what I want to do is I want to put the relationship first, and I'm going to see who you are looking to meet with, and vice versa, and see if there's a way that we can help each other out in terms of being like referral partners almost.
Mhm.
And by doing that, like I've been able to create a lot of friendships through this job, through the love of sports. And I'm in a number of different networking groups now where they look to me for like everything updates with the sports industry. And right now we are currently the fifth biggest team in the city, compared to the Eagles, Sixers, Flyers, Phillies. So it's nice that people are coming to me in that aspect, as opposed to going to some of the other bigger teams, because I've been able to create relationships like that.
Mhm. So is your like when you say going to other bigger teams, do you mean have you ever been in a situation where you had to convince a season ticket buyer from instead of buying a Sixers season ticket to buying a Union season ticket, or are you talking about something else?
So yeah, essentially, I mean, the other teams in the city are our biggest competition.
Mhm.
But what I do a good job of doing is showing business leaders in the area, that they grew up with those teams. They grew up with the Eagles, the Phillies, the Flyers, the Sixers. So they have that emotional attachment to those teams because that fandom was passed down from generation to generation. Our
Mhm.
team has only been around for 11 years. So what I do is I break down and show why it's a good business decision to do something with us compared to some of the other teams, just because our prices are a lot more affordable compared to doing something with some of the other sports teams.
I see. And when you kind of attained your position, is there something you wish you knew before? And I'm not saying like a surprise, but something I mean in terms of like what you like needed, like type of training before. Would you like give advice to your younger self?
That's a great question. Advice to my younger self. I I guess when I was younger, I almost was a little bit hesitant in like talking on the phones, or like selling to people essentially.
Hmm.
So but that's because the wording that I would use on the phones wasn't necessarily the best. Whereas over it takes trial and error to kind of perfect the way that you want yourself to come across, either on a phone, on a meeting, essentially. So if anything, it might have just been more of a confidence thing. Be more confident in what I knew, what I was talking about, because the people on the other end of the phone or the other end of the meeting, they don't know anything about what we do. So whatever I say is essentially the expert on what we do. So I wish I was a little bit more confident when I had first started out, compared to
Hmm.
how I am now.
I think yeah, because I like phone bank for local local political candidates, so I kind of have experience in like calling someone that I don't even know and kind of saying a script. And what I learned is it's awkward if you make it awkward, you know?
Yep.
Like if you just kind of go with the flow and just kind of talk with a normal voice, it's honestly not that bad. But if you're in your head while you're doing it, that's when it gets weird, right?
Yep. And even then, like with the script, as you mentioned too, like there is a script for every single like call campaign that you'll ever have. But the thing is that you don't want it to sound like you're reading off of a script. So
That
while doing it, like you can sit there and ask a question, essentially. But from that question, you want to ask like three or four or five, follow up questions to that. This way, it's more of a conversation back and forth as opposed to you asking a person question after question after question without kind of going any further deeper than that, to the point where they feel like they're just talking to a robot. So you
Mhm.
want your personality to shine on the phone, because once people feel more comfortable with you, and talking about their kids, talking about their experiences, talking about like what they enjoy at the games and such, it makes it that much easier than once you get to the very end of your call and you're doing your pitch, or in your case, I'm assuming it was like donations for a political candidate or something like
Yeah.
that. When you
Mhm.
when once you finally get the chance to know the person a little bit more, it's a lot easier than to go for that ask, as opposed to kind of getting the information and everything but not building rapport with the person at all, and then going, what's your card information? So it's a
Mhm.
little bit different.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Smink, this has been a very informative interview. And now, a general thing I like to kind of do is give you the opportunity to give any seventh, eight, obviously to 12th grader, any type of advice in if they want to be in your field, what it kind of took for you to get there, just any last minute closing statement.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, to get where I am today, I mean, it takes a lot of hard work, a lot of long hours. I felt like I was a good student in school. Looking back, I wish I had been better, had focused a little bit more, to the point where, my grades would have been a little bit higher. But, with that, thankfully, when I got to college, I did flip it around a little bit, and I was an even better student in college. But, with that, like, don't be afraid to, reach out, talk to people. Don't be afraid to, um, essentially network yourself, meet as many people as you possibly can, because you never know what that person does, or where that relationship with that person could eventually lead you to in the future. So a lot of jobs in today's day and age is essentially who you know, on top of the education that you do get. So you want to have a very equal balance of both, but making sure that your grades are first and foremost the best they possibly can be, on top of meeting people and getting the chance to essentially build a lasting relationship with them. Just because, as I mentioned, later on down the road, it could help you out.
Mhm. Well, again, thank you so much, Mr. Smink. Next week we don't know who we're interviewing yet, but we are continuing on this career speaker series, and we hope that for anyone interested in this series, continues on watching, because even if we haven't talked to anybody who may or may not be in your specific career interest, we're hoping to get to them. My name is Jojo Dawadi. I wanted to thank you all for watching one more time.